Welcome, everyone, to this session today. I thought it was the K-12, but it's now the P-12 Teacher Workshop for World Languages and Global Learning. We're very glad to host this event as part of the mission of the Atlanta Global Studies Center. We support P-12 programs in the state of Georgia, and our teachers and our faculty will have an opportunity to network today and learn from each other's projects. And I would like to welcome and introduce Paulina Guzman, who is the Deputy Director of the City of Atlanta's Mayor's Office of International and Immigrant Affairs. She will be sharing with us some projects and initiatives that are happening in the Mayor's Office that are of great impact to our international education agenda here in the city of Atlanta. So please help me welcome Paulina.
Thank you, Juan Carlos. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. So again, my name is Paulina Guzman. I'm the Deputy Director for the Mayor's Office of International and Immigrant Affairs. Hi, Tony. At the City of Atlanta. Thank you so much for having me here today. And thank you, of course, to Diana and to Stuart and to Juan Carlos and everyone who put this program together today and keeping the coffee flowing. I think we deserve extra caffeine for getting up bright and early on a Saturday. So thank you for that. The Atlanta Global Studies Center has been such a pillar in our international community, providing advanced language learning and programming on global and intercultural issues for the benefit of Atlanta region students, faculty, and the public. It has served as a great connector between business, education, government, nonprofit, educators, administrators, and has been an essential platform to convene those involved in the global education space. So why am I here? I am not a teacher. I'm not an educator. I don't work for K through 12 like this wonderful group that's here today. But what I am here is to speak to you all about why the next generation of leaders will require a global outlook. Atlanta's growth is on a racetrack, and it's not stopping. Teachers such as yourself who are waking up early on a Saturday to learn more about your discipline, to learn more about how to connect better with students, are essential to this growth. Foreign language education and exposing students to cultural diversity in a global context is essential to building Atlanta's talent and overall growth as a city. Last year, Atlanta was ranked as the best place to live in the United States by Money Magazine. We were declared the best city in America for Generation Z. Bloomberg said that Atlanta has more going for it than any other U.S. metropolis. We were named one of the sites for the biggest sports tournament in the world, the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Atlanta's reputation as a tech mecca, as a global business hub with the most innovative educational institutions and nonprofits, and home to the world's busiest and most efficient airport in the world, Atlanta is influencing the world, and the world is taking notice. And I'm not just saying this, I see this all the time, I see this every day. In fact, next week, we have about 6 delegations coming to City Hall, coming to the city of Atlanta that we're facilitating from Germany, from Brazil, from Canada, from Pakistan. And on average, we welcome about 80 to 100 delegations per year from over 40 different countries and regions. The mayor, just in the past 2 months, has welcomed 10 ambassadors to the city of Atlanta. So why is foreign language learning and global competency important? Atlanta is the 10th largest economy in the U.S. and one of the fastest growing cities with 6 million residents and a GDP of nearly $400 billion. We are home to the 3rd largest concentration of Fortune 500 companies in the country, including many brands that I'm sure you all recognize, UPS, Coca-Cola, NCR. And we can't speak about Atlanta and Georgia without discussing our booming entertainment industry as well. I'm sure you all have heard of Black Panther, Avengers, Hunger Games. All of these movies were filmed here in Georgia. Georgia brings in more than $2.9 billion from the TV and film industry, and at any given time, there are about 40 films or TV productions taking place throughout the city. And of course, we can't talk about our global city without talking about the airport. Hartsfield-Jackson is the most traveled airport in the world with over 75 international destinations and direct flights. We have one of the most engaged diplomatic communities in the country with over 70 members of the Consular Corps that are based here in Atlanta that oversee the Southeast. We have over 30 binational chambers of commerce and trade offices, and we have 17 sister cities. And we have the second fastest growing foreign-born population in the nation, second to Maryland. And actually, yesterday, we put together a program in partnership with the Truman Center and Metro Atlanta Chamber of Commerce, where the president of the chamber, Katie Kirkpatrick, said that talent is the key priority for Metro Atlanta business leaders. What I'm trying to emphasize here is building a global workforce is consistently part of the conversation, and it is a priority for Atlanta's leaders. And to build that global workforce, we need to start early. So the work that you all are doing is absolutely essential. Mayor Dickens announced last month that 2023 is the year of the youth. His priority through this campaign is to highlight all of the great academic programs that are here in Atlanta and to offer experiences that our young people can explore. Our youth represents the best of who we are, and we want Atlanta to be the best place for them to grow up. Last year, the City of Atlanta invested over $4 million in our Summer Youth Employment Program, where we gave more than 3,000 young people jobs throughout Atlanta. Thanks to a partnership with Atlanta Public Schools and private funders, the city has now secured commitments to reach our goal of $20 million to Early Childhood Education Initiative. The early childhood investment includes microgrants for capital improvements and literacy training for parents and for educators. And what about youth organizations? How do we empower the community-based organizations that are already on the ground doing the work and removing barriers for our children? The City of Atlanta created the $1 million Youth Development Grant for local community-based organizations that provide programming and services to Atlanta students up to age 18 in the K-12 space. And Mayor Dickens has emphasized time and time again that he creates circles, not lines, and the circle keeps expanding. We are so thankful to people who are investing in our city's future, especially to teachers like you, coaches and mentors who show up for our young people. And we are very lucky to have such dedicated partners in the city, such as the Atlanta Global Studies Center, Georgia State University, the Georgia Department of Economic Development, Cobb County Schools, all of the organizations that you all represent, and all of our academic partners. Atlanta has a unique spirit of collaboration that exists between our business, education, civic communities, and together we are striving to bring more equity and prosperity to all of our residents and youth. So thank you all again. I hope I have the opportunity to work more closely with you all. I'll be here, not the whole day, but I'll be here for the morning, and I'd love to speak more about all of the work that you all are doing, and look forward to connecting more closely. So thank you again.
Thank you, Paulina. And welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here today. I just want to go through a few housekeeping items, and then we will introduce the first panel. So let me pull something up for you. We prepared let me make sure it works. Yes. We prepared a little survey for you. If you don't mind telling us who you are, we'll share the results a little bit later, but we just wanted to get an idea of what you do and how many people are in the audience. You can select any of these options, and you can select more than one. So that's one thing. Also, please feel free, this event is very casual. Please help yourself to refreshments as needed. Go use the restrooms. You can get up during the sessions whenever you need. You don't need to wait for the break, in other words. Does everyone know where the restrooms are? They are across go past the catering tables, through the hallway, through the main atrium, and then they'll be on your right. Lastly, you should see a QR code on your table somewhere. This is the working document that we'll use today, and as panelists come up, if they have resources that they want to share or links that they want to share, they can add them to the working document. Today's agenda, everybody should have received a copy in their email this morning, but we do have 4 wonderful sessions. Each session is going to be about 50 minutes. We'll have the panelists sit up here at these 2 tables. All of these panels are going to be recorded, so we will share them with other teachers who weren't able to make it today. So our first panel, let me welcome Amy Chang. Hi, Amy. She is a Mandarin Chinese teacher, and my second page is over here, sorry. And she works at Rivers Edge Elementary School in Clayton County. Welcome, Amy. And Joanna Arnold is a service learning coordinator and world languages advisor of French and Spanish at Furlough Charter School in Americus, Georgia. Carla Roscoe is the upper learning Latin teacher at the Galloway School. And Mrs. Sandra Daniel is the director of language program at the Globe Academy. And if you guys don't mind coming up to this table here. And our moderator for the session needs no introduction. I think everyone knows Mr. Patrick Wallace. Yes, let's give him a hand for all the good work that he does. And I'm going to turn it, here you go, Patrick. And I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Good morning. It is a pleasure to be here today, and I want to thank you for joining us and getting up on a Saturday and coming. I know for teachers, this is a big deal, so I'm excited that you're here. I always talk about that, we are family, and I always want to sing the song, We Are Family, because I always believe that world language educators are family members, and we're delighted to have some wonderful family members on our panel today. All of them do such a wonderful job, and I'm going to start with the discussion, and I guess this is a question for all of you to answer, so I'll let you determine the order. But the question is, why is it important that we connect world language with other areas of the curriculum? So I'm going to just open it up to our panel as our first question, and then let you guys respond. So you want to start us off? Okay, go ahead.
Good afternoon, good morning. No, good morning. As Patrick just said, as teachers here, we're a little jumbled up that part of the year, right? I know, just one lesson plan to the next. All right, well, I'm really glad to see everyone here and to share some of our experiences, and hope that collaboration can be really productive and all that good stuff for us. So in terms of the why, I feel like from my perspective, I kind of have a really extreme need to convince people, because I teach an ancient language, and as you can imagine, most of what I get when I'm around Atlanta talking to people is, why are they paying someone to teach a dead language? So I kind of have a steep mountain to go up to convince people. So my why has become pretty critical from school to school. I began teaching here in Atlanta in 2012 with the idea of, I need health insurance and I would like to pay the rent. And it was a very small perspective, of course, very small. And I've just been blown away by how much my perspective has been shaped by realizing what I'm doing, my role and my background as a Latin teacher, how that is affecting the schools and communities around me. So in terms of why, in a literal way, I'm talking about, survival of programs, right? Okay, because if there is no why that's convincing the people around you, after a while, they're going to shift to those languages they feel like are more relevant, So I think that's the most practical aspect, but I think also the why for remaining having that more organic buy-in to what you're doing and not just that structural, like, okay, admin has given you a certain number of classes, that's great, you can teach them, but truly connecting and having students and families really, truly understand the value of what you're trying to do. So I think it's just critical for survival. I guess we all know that world language programs, especially at the middle school level, I've done that for a few years too, you're sitting there like 9 weeks a couple times I'm sorry, 9 weeks for a couple times a week, we're not going to acquire a language, right? And you kind of feel like, so that why is just really critical, I think, for survival in world language teaching, yeah.
Hi, good morning, everyone. For me, the why is what we're doing with, we're learning languages, but it's not just about the language. It's about what you do with language. Right now, we have 3 things that we really look at is critical thinking in the language, intercultural competence, and international commerce. We just heard from Ms. Guzman how much the city is growing. Our state is growing as well. At this point, we have 71 dual language immersion programs in Georgia. That is unheard of. This is where students are learning math, science, reading, writing, all in a different language. They talk to each other in the classroom. They're problem solving in the language. It's not just listening. It's responding and making something meaningful. Right now, we just heard that we have some exciting, Siobhan has just had a plant that will be opening in Liberty County. So that will be a $73 million investment in Georgia. That's jobs that we have for our students, 180 jobs that are just opening up. We've got Kia, who will now be producing the SUV, the electric SUV now in West Point. These are jobs that our students will have. This is what we're working towards. Just this past year, we had $196 billion that just came in through trade. We're looking at major growth for Georgia, and these are the students. Our students will be filling those jobs. So it's an incredible time.
Hi, I'm Amy Chang. I teach at Clayton County Elementary School, but I have floating around in Georgia for actually quite a few schools. Mr. Patrick knows, and most of the teachers know exactly what happened. Anyway, so I think it's interesting because I live in New York City for 11 years, and actually is a professional dancer. For those of you who don't know, my undergrad degree is actually dance. So I perform with a different contemporary dance company, travel around the world, and several musical myself. So for me, being international is always part of my passion. And, I'm originally from Taiwan. It's also another controversial issue if you have heard the international news. So when I traveled from New York to Atlanta, I was quite shocked because even though it's such a metropolitan area, like you're expecting a lot of international involvement, but there's a lot of separation I see. There's a pocket of Asian, pocket of, different community, right? So now I'm in Clayton County. I teach most African-American background children and economically disadvantaged. And I think my role is even more important because these kids in their community, they don't get to see a lot. And sometimes just being there, they're curious, and you spark their interest. And they will ask me all kind of questions. I give you an example. Hey, Ms. Chang, does China have black people? Stuff like that, but just that question that they're thinking about it. And these are our young children. They're going to go to the job market. They're going to go to be a globalized citizen that we wish them to be. So I think, yes, like Ms. Sandra said, learning foreign language is not just learning foreign language. You are learning about the culture, but it's also, if you start from young, you're giving them a chance to start adapt. Because to learn a foreign language, you have to learn how to adapt easily. And now this fast-moving place, the world right now, the most important skill is how do you learn a skill quickly, because everything's so fast, technology, everything, blah, 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 blah. So with that being said, I'm also surprised that most of the language program, is in high school starting, but thank God we have a dual language program now. We start young and we start letting them to know the language exposure. So with that being said, I'm so proud to be in Georgia and in Atlanta metropolitan area, because with Mr. Patrick's leadership, it's blooming so much, and I'm just so glad to be here. Thank you very much.
Good morning. I'm Joanna Arnold, and I come to you from Southwest Georgia. So I have a little bit of a different perspective, but I'm at a K-12 public charter school, Furlough Charter. And so I am the service learning coordinator. I do French and Spanish K-8, and then I work with high school students with service learning. And the last thing that wouldn't fit on my name tag, so sometimes I leave it off the introduction, is that I am chair of our Bridges team. So when I think about why world language is important, it's built into our charter. So I have administrative support, I have governing board support. But when I think about it, Bridges is our version of Connections. But I love the term bridges, because what does a bridge do? It connects two things, and there's something that's a problem underneath, right? And so a lot of times our world languages can bridge our other curriculums and make them stronger. But from a public perspective, from administrative perspective, what you can do if you put the connections, the world language, music, art, all those things in the center, and then you bridge it out, it will strengthen your school community. When world language stays on the outside, or the connection stays on the outside, it becomes a little bit marginalized, still important, still relevant, still appreciated. But what I see the potential is to create the opportunities for the world language to bridge over into these other classes. And that's what we do at Furlough. And it's not an impossible model, but it is a change in mindset on how you look at the importance of world language. But I say that as the Bridges chair because that's music, that's art, that's PE also. But, in South Georgia, there is a different story. So, thank you. Test.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I definitely feel what you say, and the biggest thing I always think about is perspective for our students. There's so many students, like was mentioned here, that world language is their window to the world, that's the real connection that students have in their school to a global perspective. And I always think that, we teach the world, and I always say that USA has us in the beginning. And us means all of us together, and thinking about where not only we come from different places, but we can go to different places. So I'm always in awe of educators, because I was an educator for 23 years. So, I feel like that's where I resonate. I've learned that no matter what I do in life, I will always be an educator, and I think many people share that. So I'm going to continue this discussion, and maybe this is a question for two of you maybe to think about, and then if the others have comments to it, of course. But what unique skills do students develop when exploring subjects in another language? So what are the unique skills, practical or cognitive skills that they develop through your world language classroom? And I guess maybe just to put a little bit more of a focus on that area. So do I have a panel volunteer?
I always like to just volunteer and go first. That's what I tell my students, if you can hear me okay. Well, there are obvious positive cognitive and linguistic outcomes that our students are going to gain. But when they learn their language and they transfer it into these other, I'm going to go back to the bridge, they bridge it back into their other classes, into the other disciplines. What you also see are positive social outcomes. So what unique skills are they gaining? They're also gaining the social outcomes. They're learning how to communicate with others. And in that process, they are learning about themselves. So they're a positive self-awareness. They learn to understand these perspectives and build them together. But when we're talking about building the global confidence students, when you look at that whole child, and there were so many years I was talking about what will you do with what you're learning, because that is so important as an educator, and then putting that with the child and meeting the child. And when you do that by connecting all of the other disciplines, you are giving them a chance to become more self-aware of where they stand, how they feel about things. But also you are integrating all of these perspectives and leading them down that path of global confidence.
Good. Any other comments from the panel?
Yeah, I don't know, kind of a little bit micro moments, yeah. When it comes to that skill expansion, I think sometimes with Latin, we don't think, that there's much of a place to go with that. I'm always telling my kids there's no Romans to go practice with, and I do understand that. So we'll review in the fall, but I think one of my a little bit of a microcosm moment for you, I had a kid when I was teaching at a public charter school, actually on Metropolitan Avenue. If anyone knows about that former school, you probably know a pretty dynamic and outrageous story in terms of how it closed, but while we were there, we were trying to do some great things. And I had this kid who really, once again in middle school, the connections aspect can make some things difficult. You want kids to get as much out of the experience as possible, especially in middle school, because they're opening up these perspectives. The middle schoolers love to explore new things. Everything's new. And I had a kid who really wasn't ready to take Latin. I mean, at the end of the day, his English skills he was in 6th grade. He was probably reading on about a 2nd grade level, truthfully, and just not really retaining a lot of those sentence structure aspects, vocabulary. But he took Latin with me. He did not pass, did my best. I'm one of those really easy graders, tried so hard. He really ended up with a 60, truthfully. But his ELA teacher came to me one day towards the end of the year and said, what do you guys do in Latin? Like, show me a worksheet, show me something you do. I'm just really curious. And I said, well, we do this, and all this stuff. And she said, even though he still needs some push-up, he needs some remediation, his skills in reading English, and it says, has improved drastically. And I joke with my high schoolers at Galloway, and sometimes when I'm playing videos, in class, a Grammarly commercial will come on, and I always tell them that I'm offended that I get a Grammarly commercial because I feel like I could do it myself. But I tell them that. I say, if you do well in Latin, you shouldn't need to pay anyone to look at your grammar. So it enhances your English skills big time. And that's just kind of a practical angle, is enhancing your comprehension of your own language because you're analyzing another one. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
For me, as a Chinese language teacher, like if many of you know, Chinese is character-based. So, in the beginning of the school year with the young kids, we'll sing songs, hand, shoulder in Chinese, no problem. Then, when it gets to reading and writing, oh, Miss Chang, it's so hard. Each character, even how to write I, 我 character, it has 7 strokes. There's a diagonal, there's a curve, there's a flip. And I was like, yes, you see? They notice the cultural differences, like, I in English is, 3-stroke, but 我 is all kind of direction in character. So I think even when the kids learning how to write a simple I in character, you develop a grid in them. It's like, you're going to write this character for 3 times. 3 times? I was like, that is too much. I was like, listen, when I was young in my country, I was born in China, I have to write 100 times. Yes, even, so how do you expect American students to be able to be able to write a character, only practice 3 times, you can't remember. But I know it's actually like unintentionally you're training a kid to developing that grit, like now at the end of semester, they don't complain. They say, Miss Chan say, I have to write this, so I'm just write. But they didn't realize they had to put in the effort. The next year they come along, Miss Chan, I already remember how to write I character, 我, and they're so excited. And then that's that sense of accomplishment that they develop just right there. It just unintentionally developed their grit that we always say, you wanted to explore that, since you were young, and then that carries throughout their life. So I think that's very important. So.
I love that you said about grit, because it does take grit to learn something new, but I also want to make a couple comments. One is there is some empirical data. Like, we're not just saying it does good for students. We know this from the data, and I want to make sure that's hard and fast and understood by all. Dual language immersion data is all over the place on this, and there's no secret why there's 20,000 DLIs in the United States right now. It's because the data is there, and that's the best data we have really about how language is impacting the brain. But also the fact that you brought out about literacy, I think, is very important. It's such an accelerant for literacy, and that is the single most important thing that a student has to be successful in life, honestly, is literacy, even in English. I know as a German teacher, I taught a lot of English. I believe I did. Probably more so than the English teacher, because I was doing it through another, and that's the other thing I wanted to bring out, which was mirror. I always thought about, and in two ways I mean that. One is it gives you another perspective on yourself, which helps you place yourself in the world. Like as a young person, especially I think about with our kids, who, whether in a rural or even in an urban setting where they don't have access to that necessarily. It's so important in your world language class that you're giving them that perspective on their world, so they understand where they are in it and all the possibilities. And the other part is, I always have that picture in my mind of a mouse sitting in front of a mirror, and in the reflection is a lion. Because I feel like we empower students too, because we give them that and we show them the world, and it's all at their feet, kind of. And it's all these places, and it just lights a spark in them. And many of you as educators, you had that spark. That's why you're sitting in that chair here today. I see some fantastic people out here, and I know that you don't do it all the time for the money, right? We do it. No, I'm just saying, we're not CEOs, right? Let's be honest here, but we did it because it was a passion. And so I think that's something I just wanted to add. I'm super excited about that. Okay, so let's talk about exploring these cross-curriculum. We did a series of grants called the Cross-Curriculum Innovation Grants. And the idea behind that was that we would we wanted our teachers to connect with the other parts of the curriculum, but we are also making a case externally that there is not a single thing that is taught in Georgia education that doesn't have a global perspective. And there's not a single job, probably, in Georgia that doesn't have a global connection. I'm always like, how many of you shop on Amazon? Every hand goes up. How many of you, what did you eat this morning? That banana came from wherever. So, people sometimes easily forget about how connected their lives are. So, to the panel, because many of you did receive those cross-curricular innovation grants, maybe just talk about how that money and what you're doing with those grants, how are you connecting in general your work with other areas of the curriculum?
I can talk to that. So we were so fortunate at the Globe Academy to receive the CCI grant. One of the things that inspired us was actually the Georgia Department of Education. We had received, thanks to Patrick and their team, several federal funds to develop curricular resources from middle school all the way up through AP courses. And so we worked, and Miss Joanna was also on the team. These were integration for AP themes, so advanced placement. This is university credit for high school students. So we're looking at, even from the beginning, we're looking at integrating these 6 themes. So for us at Globe, we said this is what we do every day. Every day when we're working with our high school credit 8th graders, we are integrating the AP themes. So when in the past we were looking at the food unit, the vegetables, what are the names of it? That's not what we're looking at anymore. We're looking at impact on exports, imports, tariffs, drought. How does that impact our global economy? How does it impact our local economy? How are we connected with others through language and commerce? So we're doing this from the very beginning. So even in middle school, the students are already thinking about these global themes. So then when we get to our level 4 students have been doing this the whole time. We have 8th graders now that are passing the AP exam, getting university credit already as 14-year-olds. that's not just helping them. This is also great for our universities as well. They've got students that already have credits. They're on their way to graduation already. It's great financially for the student. They don't have to pay all of these fees. And so we're helping everyone, and we're filling these jobs. So we are creating some resources at the Globe Academy that we'll be sharing with the Georgia Department of Education and others so that they can use them. And all units will be in French, Mandarin, and Spanish.
I'm also fortunate to get the grant. We have purchased the dragon, the lions for the puppet. But you might think, okay, how did I gonna relate to Chinese language lesson? Because since I teach the youngest kids, we want to hold on to their interest to keep studying Mandarin. So fun is the first thing you have in mind. Culture to them is first in mind for me. So of course, I use those opportunity to purchase those Chinese New Year celebration prop, the lion dance and dragon dance. So they get to experience authentically how those prop is, and we'll collaborate with PE class, teach a little bit Kung Fu dance, because all the dragon dance and lion dancers are Kung Fu people. Yeah, and the music, no problem. We also have Chinese New Year parade, so we have music teacher coming in. We're gonna do a little bit drumming and procession music, so they know how to do the parade music for when we're doing the Chinese parade. And then we also incorporate food in it. Of course, food, everybody loves food, Chinese foods. So guys, even though it seems so insignificant, it's just some sort of like fun thing to do, but then just because there's so much fun, they get interested in it. And they stay interested, because every year we will be celebrating Chinese New Year. So it's learning Mandarin Chinese is a hard road. If you don't understand, it really is. The writing, character, and reading, it was just so hard. Even when we go to the national Chinese conferences, like the college professor is say, okay, the year 1 goes great, year 2 is like a lot of students just drop out simply because the character writing is just so challenging for American students. So as an elementary school teacher, I'm teaching from kindergarten to 5th grade. I need to grab onto them so they will want to keep learning, not to give up on them. So this is my way just to use the grant and then using the cultural events to keep them interested, so they keep on going to middle school and high school, so that hopefully they're still very interested to learn the culture and languages. So, yeah.
All right, very good. Thank you. And that grant just closed not too long ago. So these individuals, teachers, they received grants from the first year we offered it. Second year has now happened. So please apply the next year when they come open. The other question I have for you is, what special considerations or accommodations are made about, I'm sorry, I'm reading this without my glasses. Y'all feel me, don't you? Need to be made for, I'm just going to put these on. This is also a sign you're getting old. What special considerations or accommodations need to be made when teaching content or subjects in an area in which you might not be trained? Now, this happens, right? We want cross-curriculum, so we can pull in other teachers, as was mentioned, but a lot of times maybe you can't do that. So what are some tips for when you're teaching a different content area using the river of language, maybe just in general?
Do you want to start? At Furlough, we talk a lot about project-based learning and starting with the end in mind, and getting the students to work on a real-world problem. So the real-world problem sometimes is, what do I know about science? What do I know about math? What do I know about some of these other classes? But I try to always think about what it is that I love, and I ask my students what they love. So that inspires a lot of energy, and then I move from that into really working with students, trying to think about how to get you to see this. We do something, we put the map in the middle, and then the circle in the middle, and then we put English, and we'll put the math and the science and all these things around. And then we think about who can help us. It's not always just me. And so I look out into the community and bring in community partners. I absolutely advocate for going to people like Starlight or with Flag, those resources. But I do the research. You know, when they tell me, here's my idea, here's what we're working on, then I have to go back and do some research, but I figure out who it is that can help me the most. A lot of times it's an administrator who really has a contact with someone that I'm not aware of, and that makes it a lot of fun. So when we did the pirate theme, and we had a garden that became a butterfly garden. So I was working with kindergartners and first graders. But when they helped build out that theme that we were doing, and then we find out, okay, so we know people nearby who have the Rosalind Carter Butterfly Trail. So, okay, so we've got to figure out how to meet those people. So the kids are working through all of these steps, that they get excited when they're brought into part of it. So sometimes your experts are the kids in the room, or they have a parent, or they have a community member that can really, really make it a powerful connection.
For us in dual language immersion, that's what we're doing every day. So every day those students are speaking, reading, writing, reasoning for math, science, everything directly in the language. It's like walking into a foreign country when you're walking into the classroom. There's never a little word of English even spoken. It's something truly incredible. To get there, we have to do a lot of scaffolding. So in our classrooms, we've got to think with the end in mind, our backwards planning, so that we can say, how do we get to this large concept? How do we get the students to write paragraphs of their narratives in a foreign language when they speak English at home? How do we get there? So there's a lot of different scaffolding techniques that can be used, just the sentence starters, chunking, a shared experience, and starting bit by bit to get where we need to go. Starting out with modeling, practicing in small groups, and then moving on to independence. But when we're able to do this, the students are able to do so much more with their language. It's truly bringing language to life, because we're using it in a real way.
Thank you. Jump in on the kind of the arts perspective. At Galloway School, it's a very art-centered school, big time. And to give you an idea, if you take your high school, traditional high school culture, subtract your football team and insert your theater program, and that's literally the culture of the school. So that's been real refreshing for me. My undergraduate degree, I didn't mention, is in music, and I also teach guitar and play in a band here around in Atlanta. And so the kids really like that arts connection. And so sometimes that's easy to facilitate the actual language teaching. In fact, I do bring in music a lot, and I like how you mentioned about those hard skills, and it helps mollify when you connect across the curriculum, especially when you can read the room. Like, I have a lot of the lead role people, a lot of the best actors in the school are my Latin students, and so in the fall, for example, our theater person, Antonia, okay, who's just amazing, they decided to do Eurydice, okay, which is a modern adaptation of Orpheus and Eurydice, right, okay, from the classical world. And so my Latin 4 students, and by the way, it was my first year too, so I'm ready to be like inventive and show them that they should have hired me. And so I have 2 sections of Latin 4. And so what I decided to do, since I have all these theater kids, they love it, the buy-in, that experiential connection was great. And we acted out a lot of sessions, and it was so funny at times. I was just rolling on the floor, like the way the kids interpreted the imagery of the poem and all this sorts of stuff. But then at the end of the day, what I noticed, that absorption was deeper. That absorption of the language, that that interest was deeper than just the grammar. You know what I mean? And I would iterate that too. I liked how you talked about organizing curriculum by cultural themes, and that's something I have to do with Latin all the time to make it relevant. No shade against older Latin teachers, but as we all know, the old school way of learning is grammar. It's like today's unit is pluperfect verbs, and it's like so exciting. Oh my gosh, never even heard of a pluperfect verb. Now it's subjunctives. That's not exciting. I tell my kids all the time, we're all humans. Me too, okay? Grammar, I'm fascinated by it. I like to teach it. It's not like fun though sometimes, okay? It's work, you know? And so what I do is I trick them, you know, I kind of refashion things. So, for example, right now we're doing the Circus Maximus in Latin too, okay? And they have to build their own Circus Maximus and whatever material they want to use and all this stuff. We're bringing in the engineering part, all that sort of stuff. And but then at the same time, they're racking their brains with participles right now. And some of the kids really can't wrap their heads around participles. But when we do this push and pull, when our story is about these fans of a chariot racer and we bring in some music, you know, all of a sudden their brains are more apt to be able to positively absorb that, you know, because as we all know with language acquisition, you know, that affective filter, right? When you think you can't do it and when you're stressed out about it, your brain already is having trouble doing it, you know? So I think just for the intrinsic learning itself, there's a lot of value in that cross-curriculum connection, especially when you can have the good fortune. I admit some of it is a good situation I'm just in, that my students are artsy, I'm artsy, you know, well, let's make this all kind of artsy, so the grammar is actually very exciting, right? Yeah, so it's just kind of, yeah, gotcha.
To add on to Miss Daniel and Miss Rascals, as a teacher, like for example, I'll just give you a brief example. Like Miss Daniel said, it takes a lot of scaffolding. So if you're thinking about, I'm going to just give you a dance example. So since I was a dancer, so you're going to think about, okay, when you dance, you count, right? You have to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you could design your class number first. Then, you know, when you dance, you have to make a jump or the turn, so you could pull out those verbs coming out. So you're scaffolding what's necessary in the basic first. Then you step by step using the language and then teaching within the movement in the dance. And then you incorporate backward design. Work from the bottom to up. So gradually, you build up students. Then you bring in a guest artist to teach a student dance class. Then they have no problem, you know, authentic. They have no problem to listen to or make a right turn, make a big jump here, go to the front, step in 8 counts. Then they could pick it up really fast. Even though the guest teacher will be speaking Chinese all the way through, then now you already prepare them for the basic vocabulary that they needed to be able to carry through. So that's just something to think about when you wanted to incorporate the basic lessons and stuff. Yeah.
Excellent. That makes I don't know. When I listen to fantastic teachers, I always think about the skill involved in being a fantastic teacher, but there's also an art to that, right? And then my other thought is there's a heart to that too, because that's also sort of that connection. These teachers are passionate. You know, it comes through every time they open their mouths and every time you see them in front of students. So that love that you have for what you do and for the subject you teach comes across for sure.
Patrick, can I?
Sure.
They reminded me of something that I wanted to mention. You know, there are 2 different camps about project-based learning in world language. One, there's no way it can work, and then another, it's very possible. And so I think the scaffolding, and I didn't mention that, I'm so glad you did. The scaffolding is the key, because when you build that in the whole way through, then you're carrying the language the whole way through. I can admit, the first year that I did this, I did a project with the planets, and it was terrible. We did all these beautiful lessons, and then I'd let them go work, and then it was all English. And and then they came back to me and wanted to do a presentation in the language, in Spanish, and it didn't work. Yeah, they learned something, it connected, all of that, but it wasn't building the language skills. So this past week, when I did it again, it's like 4 or 5 years later, I've done it again, got up enough nerve. And then and we did it in French this time. So in French, because I had built the scaffolding, there were continuums and there were all these other activities that differentiated and met the students where they were, then it was possible. So if you want to know how project-based learning can work, let me know.
Yeah, and I'll just make one other comment, and that is I've always felt that world language courses were more than just language, and even more than much more culture. It was about this global connection, you know? Like just, I feel like our world language teachers are the ones in the school that really put global in the minds of students. You know, and I think sometimes people get scared of the word global. Like, what are you talking about with global education? But I think we do need to embrace that to some degree because we really are the world, the vision, the window through which students sort of encounter the world. My own personal story is that way, right? German teacher, when I was in high school, really showed me another language. But more than that, they showed me another way of thinking, another perspective on life, on my own life. Maybe even, I didn't even know it at that time, discovering a new love, you know? So there is, like I said, just, I'm just amazed by that. Okay, let's talk about the what, and that is specifically what resources are available for teachers that can support interdisciplinary connections. So I know that's on the DOE side. I think this is an area that we want to go into more in, to be honest, project-based learning, maybe connecting with the CTAE career pathways. How can we make what we do language, how it's more than just language. Yes, we're learning English and we're learning another language and we're learning other cultures, but we're really connecting them with the rest of the world. The world of work is not divided, it's not siloed. So that's my question, I guess, to the panel is, what resources have helped you in your interdisciplinary connections in making those connections? It's a hot mic.
I can talk a little bit about, for us, we think a lot, we're thinking these are going to be jobs that our students are able to have. They're directly using the language every single day. They're able to communicate everything that they want to communicate in the language. So we're thinking about jobs and companies that are based here in Atlanta that can support. We have 17 Fortune 500 companies that are headquartered here, right, in Georgia. And then, several thousands of, international companies that are here as well. So there's a lot of grant opportunities through companies to support world language, to support our students, to support our programs. We've got also these students that are able to go directly into the jobs. So there's lots of internships that are available as well. And just that partnership between the community, the workforce, and the students. This is what we're here for.
All right, well, I think right now we're going to switch from just being the panel. I don't need this microphone. I'm a teacher. You're just making me louder. No. But I did want to open it up to questions from those of you that are here today for our panelists about any of the topics we've discussed. Just give us a brief moment here before we have to move on to the next session to have some interactions. And we have several people looking out in this audience that are awesome at all the things we're talking about up here too. And I definitely want to mention our district coordinator, Jamie Patterson from Fulton County back there, Mr. Herman Suarez from Cobb. Thank you also for coming out on a Saturday. It's not only our teachers that dedicate time, and it's our administrators as well, honestly. And these are the administrators that get us. You know what I mean? Like, there are counties I go to and nobody gets me. Even though they're administrators. But if I go to Cobb, hey, I'm talking, they know more than I do. But it's weird because then you go to a rural system and you're the guy. So, with all the answers. So let's open it up. Anybody? I have a hot mic here that I am ready to run to someone's question. Okay, Diane.
Good morning, and thank you, everyone, for everything you have shared this morning. And also thankful because we got a grant from the Georgia Department of Education through the International Language Center with ANACOS. And also we experienced good things for students. And I believe what I was waiting for, I found some, but could we have more? Because especially when the Latin teacher was talking, that language, but if I take example of my spouse, took 1 year of Latin, not very fluent in English when we came to the U.S. When she was social worker, but she wanted to become nurse because she was working in hospital before we came in. And when she went, she has taken just a year of Latin. And it's what helped her, really, is not the English, because for medication, for terminology, it was that. And after she became a nurse in the hospital, she will not challenged. We tell doctor, okay, we're not doing this, we're not giving that medication, even if you prescribe, because if you want, give that to the patient, you do it yourself. I'm not doing it because you have to change it. And the doctor will, because from her hand, she will not kill someone. She will not do something wrong to a patient because just for that year of Latin. So she's sure of what she's doing because she has the root through Latin. But how can we get our student to that level of understanding? It's a little difficult. We need exposure. We need kind of grant that will help us to kind of find activities or taking them out somewhere that they can see those things and get them in, because it's difficult. Even for me as a French teacher, it's not easy sometimes to get them to some reality that we have right there, because I'm an adult, I have kind of a student they don't have. So we need some incentive to help them get in. Thank you. Thank you. So we need more. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for that reminder too on that. Yeah, I didn't get to bring that practical angle, but of course, medicine and law and Latin. Yeah, exactly. Practical.
I just think about our teachers, guys. We need more of you.
Just to answer your question, because I'm from Georgia Tech, I part-time there, but I graduated from UGA. So we were from the same school, UGA, world language education. This is a small world. For a lot of immigrant teachers, you said we're family. We are family because our families, my families are in China. Like y'all, my families. See, I say y'all. Year 10 of immigration. I'm a Chinese teacher, so I don't need this. I'm Chinese teacher, so I can, y'all can hear me. So to answer your question, there's a program center called CESPIC, Center of Education Integrating Science, Mathematics, and Computing. So if you talk to Bonnie, they do internship for K-12 teachers for all subjects. So they have some grant, they can connect different subjects, fields of professional educators to do internship and at the same time bring different perspective to their classroom. So if they can help all of us actually to have grant, do internship, we can earn some money part-time or in the summer, and then at the same time we can get support from the community. It will be great.
Great, thank you.
So cool.
I can email you.
All right.
Maybe you could share that resource with Diana, so we can put it on our resource thing.
Any other questions?
Yeah. Hi. Thank you so much for the panel. I really enjoyed listening to your perspectives. And I was wondering, how could institutions in higher education, through their faculty resources, their students, could participate, could contribute to expand the impact of world languages at the P-12 level? I think there might be some opportunities using service learning platforms. There might be some opportunities of curriculum development as well. So how would you see those partnerships perhaps coming into your school or taking some programmatic form, no? Yeah.
Thank you so much. You reminded me that we have made an effort to connect with a lot of different counties and schools. So at the Globe Academy, we've had Heard County high school students come into our classrooms and read with third graders. because we're looking at what is the main idea of the author. Is there any bias in this text? And so high school students were able to help our students with that critical thinking skills that, a third grader is 9 years old, but they're speaking fluently. So they were able to kind of help each other, and the kids were able to see, wow, these big kids are learning these languages too. So they're really excited about it. That's one of the ways. We've also partnered with Lowndes County in Valdosta, Georgia. So we've had Spanish and French high school students that are in their AP programs partnering with our students that are studying for their AP exam. So they've been able to communicate together on similar themes and discuss them. But I think it's really, really important to get the students to come in. I talked with Christy Winkler with Culture. They have an amazing event that's coming up in October where students get to learn what jobs they could have. So one of the things that we talked about with Lowndes County was Lowndes County coming in to go to World Languages Day, go see the jobs, and then the next day come into our school, read with the students, sit in on the classes, participate together. But I think it's all a continuum because we're all together in this. We're all uplifting our students, the universities, the jobs that are available, and we're always open to collaborating. So,
Can I?
yes.
You were, referencing service learning, so my ears went up a little bit there because I know the importance of experiential learning on a college campus. So I would advocate for reaching out to all these different schools in the area and bringing them in to help build a symposium or a conference. That's what Georgia Southwestern State University did with Furlough, and we have the Jubilee International Symposium every year. I've got some guest speakers in the audience also. And so what that did was empower our teachers in Americas, but it also empowered all of these people around the state who came in to speak or to do different things. So that there was a really strong connection that was built. And then we expanded to national speakers coming in and inviting the freshman class. So this past year, we invited the whole freshman class into the Storm Dome. But that was possible because Georgia Southwestern opened its doors to a school coming in. And then the College of Education wanted to partner. So it continues to grow. So I think I would really advocate for reaching out to teachers and saying, hey, who has an idea? How can we help?
Definitely want to just echo that collaborative spirit that we have here in Georgia. I mean, I can't emphasize that enough. We are in a blessed place because I actually serve as president of our Council for State Supervisors, so people who do my job in all the other states. And when I travel to those states, there's a lot of collaboration happening also within those states, but I always feel like Georgia, particularly Atlanta, but also Georgia, have a very collaborative spirit. So I think, collaborating with other teachers, like this program with Heard County is one example of that, but collaborating with universities. So guys, as teachers, don't forget about your universities. I think sometimes they just want to communicate with you. Sometimes, I know we're all like that. We're in our bubble, we're working, we're very busy. But sometimes the most important thing you could do is not stay in your bubble. So just build time to raise your head out of the foxhole, look around. Connect with your neighbors. There's lots of opportunity out there, but teachers are the spark. I mean, when I think about what's happening, it all comes back to a teacher and their initiative and their passion that drive that, And for as many of you have gotten to know, I've seen that passion so connect with that passion, but feel empowered. You're part of a family, a community, but also make an effort to make connections and reach outside of your language, but also reach outside of your school. And you could build something that will impact, because really, you guys know I'm a team of one. People always say, your team's doing a great job. I'm like, yeah, I'll tell them all you said so. but that's true of a lot of our world language teachers, though, honestly. I mean, they're teams of one. So when you're a team of one, you really have to harness partnerships to really expand your impact. So that's something too I want to mention.
I just want to add on to that of service. I also serve as a cultural teacher for Taiwanese Overseas Council. What we do is, like a lot of Chinese parents, they want their kids to learn English. So what we do is we have teenage Taiwanese kids. They're going to be volunteer position, but at the same time, they're going to be teaching at a school in Taiwan. Like the kids sign up for wanting to better English during the summertime, and at the same time, they travel there to get to their homeland. So I don't know if it's a similar program in Spain, or maybe there are kids who want to better their English. I think there's always program that have an exchange during the summertime, and it's very service based. You teach those kids are American-born Chinese, but they're fluent in English, but they teach the English to the native in their homeland, but they benefit both ways. So that is something like you could look into, maybe, or develop a program during the summertime, maybe. I don't know. So.
Also want to encourage you to connect with your teacher organizations in the state, the American Association or Georgia Association of Teachers of Arabic, Georgia Chinese Language Educators, AATSB, AATF, AATG does great communities. There's lots of Facebook communities where they're sharing stuff. Twitter, you guys know the information is not linear these days. So the more you can connect with the communities that resonate with the work you're doing and the heart you have, the better that will be an impact in the actual thing you bring to the plate each day when you walk in the classroom.
Make a quick point. Yeah, I'm Tony Lemieux. I'm the co-director of the Atlanta Global Studies Center, and I just want to really clarify one thing. Yes, we're here in Atlanta, and yes, we're Georgia State and Georgia Tech and Spelman, but we are also a national resource center. So if you think about what this program was supposed to do, it really is more inclusive than not. And I think one of the things that we'd love to continue to hear and be in dialogue is like more about how we can bolster that pipeline. Part of the mission is the higher ed space, of course, but as Juan Carlos and others have mentioned, and I know we think about like how do we reach back. And one of the things that struck me, and I heard sort of part of this in the conversation, but thinking about the career paths, and I know Culture does some great work there, and where I see it showing up is I do a lot of work in security related space and terrorism and extremism. And one of the things that struck me over the years is when people have these combinations of skill sets. So an interest in language and culture and some other thing. It's like helping to see those intersections and then where it connects. And that's where I think if we're having the conversations with students trying to envision possibilities, like how these things, when you put them together, give you so much of an edge, so much of an opportunity to make that difference. And I think, for us in the higher ed space, thinking about how do we articulate that? Like I desperately need research assistants, researchers interested in, particular kinds of security challenges with particular language and culture skills. That's really hard to come up with. I recently, had a grad student who is a native Urdu speaker. Great. Now we can look at some of the, some of the Taliban communication. But these are things that I think when we look at how we can be better in that role as a national resource center and really cultivate some of the people who are doing the work and doing the research and, the college to career aspect of what we do and sort of figuring out how to reach back. So we would, be really, we'd love to be able to engage more in some of those conversations. And, I'd personally volunteer to go and talk to, when my daughters were in school and they were doing those career days, now they're in high school and junior high, it's not so cool to have your dad come in, but littler, and it'd be like, okay, here's what we, can do. So, we're all ears for that, I think, as an ongoing, dialogue and concern. And now that our center's a little bit more mature and we're in our sort of second cycle, I think having some more bandwidth to do that. And Diana Renrap, the Associate Director, has done an amazing job helping to establish an Arabic Teachers Council of the South, which now has been funded, multiple years, has started to grow just, sort of more regionally. So thinking about, similar kinds of mechanisms where we can help convene in those other spaces would be also really quite welcome.
Okay, I think this is the last question.
I don't need the mic.
Okay.
I think I'm loud enough. What am I about to say? It might open a big jar of worms, because I teach in a high school where my students are 100% bilingual, because I teach a Spanish for native speakers class, and most of my students are in United States illegally, so they don't have the situation where they can go to college or they can find an easy job or stuff like that. They are not able to participate in the real world because of that legal situation, and they are not guilty of it because their parents brought them. So my question is, I know this is gonna be hard, and for me it's super hard because I am an immigrant too. I came to the United States with papers and everything, but the community I work with, and I live in the same community, I see this every day. The kids are not interested in keep studying because they know they don't have further opportunities. And it's heartbreaking seeing all that brightness being tossed in the trash because they know they are not going to be able to do anything further than that. And I don't know how to help them. And I'm here today, and I was here yesterday to, research some other opportunities to offer them. Most of them are ready to graduate, and they don't know what to do. So, is there any options for them? I don't know. I'm sorry.
I think that issue particularly will take a lot of, policy levels, changes, including higher ed policy changes. And I think it is a very complex issue because of the many layers of the policy. Yes, but I think we also have some ways in which we could support the students. I teach at Georgia Tech. I was here in 2011 when the ban against undocumented students passed, and I advocated against it because I think it was unfair, and I still believe that's the case today. There are some allies in higher education who could feel the same way, and we probably will need to be more outspoken and have a more impact in the university policies that we have. There are some civil society organizations that are providing support. One of them is Freedom University. We yesterday had a presentation of an AgRec project that involved the participation of Freedom University. So even though we have a situation like this one in our system, I think we could expand our impact by providing support to other initiatives, and also to think about ways in which our system, even though we may not be able to enroll some of the students, we could still make them participants of some of our initiatives, invite them to classrooms, engaging with our students. So I think there are plenty of opportunities. And in the meantime, preparing students for a university career in other university systems or within our system where they could complete their college degrees, that would be an option available. So I think that's, again, a complex issue, but I think we have to find perhaps additional ways to support students. I'm a bit also concerned about the fact that we, for a while, had DACA as a program that allowed students a path for education, and that path no longer exists. So we may need to, think about policy ways in which we could provide impact. What I could do right now is to invite students to my classroom, to engage in conversations. If we could have an impact through service learning and support them, that's what we could do, and it could have a direct impact.
I always try to encourage them to keep studying and do. Many of my students are currently taking AP courses and passing all those AP courses, trying to not discourage them. But at the same time, they realize that their opportunities are, So, but thank you. Thank you for.
I was just mention one other avenue that we've been exploring is training after-school teachers to supplement regular day curriculum. And there's an excellent program at Georgia State called After School. I can't remember what but it provides after-school assistance to K through 12 schools. And some of these programs are dedicated to teaching STEM skills and programming and coding, because skills like that can set students up for the workplace and for careers who might not be able to go to higher education institutions. And one of the projects that AGSC has just, or will be starting to support, led by a professor at Georgia Tech, that is working on teaching coding skills in after-school programs. So that's something that but targeting schools for Hispanic speakers and African-American students. So if that's the kind of thing that you would be interested in,
Thank you. Yes.
Happy to be in touch.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna stop the conversation here. I do want the conversation to continue, but I think people are gonna start getting hungry. Thank you to the panel. Thank you, Joanna, Sandra, Amy, Carla, and of course Patrick, for doing the first session, the first panel. Thank you. We really appreciate all your. Before we take the break, I also want to introduce Mr. Bob McCormick, and he has an opportunity that he'd like to share with you, and then we'll break for lunch.
And I'll be fast, I promise. I always talk fast when it gets closer to lunchtime. I'm a former German teacher, 35 years at Tucker High School. I was department chairman for world languages, started the IB program there. In 2016, after I'd been retired a few years and got real bored being retired, yes, it is possible, I started what I call the Atlanta Institute for Diplomatic Leadership. And the purpose of it is to encourage young people, primarily current sophomores and juniors, to go on into college and further their study in languages and study international issues. This summer I'll be offering my 8th cohort. We were at Emory for the first 4 years, shifted to virtual for 3 years. It was okay. I had students over the last 3 years from Texas, Virginia, Florida, and it was really nice to be able to bring them in. We're going to have 2 weeks for the workshop this summer. First week will be June 12th to the 16th, virtual. And I had a phone call last night from a lady in Massachusetts who really wants her son to participate. The second week will be at Emory University Center for Ethics. They co-sponsored me now for the first 4 years and having me back this year because they love the students. I recruit primarily from anywhere. It is completely free. It's self-funded for me. It's my contribution to this generation. But I'm looking, like I say, for current sophomores and juniors. No test scores required, no grades required, no teacher recommendation required, but they have to write for me why they're interested in doing this, why they want to make a difference. Over the last 7 years, I've had some phenomenal students. Paulina has worked with the kids several years. Trevor Williams, that spoke to you guys yesterday, he's always does the debriefing. The topics range, it's a very broad workshop. I have about 20 speakers over the 2 weeks. Ethics, servant leadership, community building, interfaith dialogue, diplomacy, nonviolent social change. As far as diplomacy, I always bring in somebody from the Atlanta Consular Corps. I just got confirmation from James Hill, who's the Consul General for Canada. Paulina knows him. And he'll be giving the consular presentation. I have people from USAID that come and talk about the different international issues. The 3 international issues are, we talk about the push factors for migration in Central America. Ambassador Nealon, who was a former ambassador to Honduras, will give a presentation, as well as some of the USAID workers who are there. We talk about peace building in the Middle East, and I'm really proud to announce that I have an internationally renowned speaker. His name is Guidon Bromberg from EcoPeace Middle East. He co-founded EcoPeace Middle East back about 20 years ago. He has received Time Magazine's award for humanitarian hero. He's spoken to the United Nations, spoken to the U.S. Congress, he's spoken to the European Union, and he's going to Zoom with us from Tel Aviv. And this is a chance for the students to talk to people around the world who are international leaders. I want these kids to know that their opinions matter. As you know, as well as I do, we're not preparing kids for today and today's economy. We're preparing them for the challenges they'll have 20, 30, and 40 years down the road that we can't even imagine now. I am very optimistic that this generation coming up can make a tremendous difference. The kids I have worked with, I would vote for any one of them to be president. I honestly would. And I think some of them are going to run for president one of these days. I'm pushing. If I can last long enough, I'll be their campaign. But if you have any way to get the word out, I would appreciate it. I'm competing against $18 an hour jobs and international travel. These kids are all over the place. They could go to my website, ask for application, and the deadline's coming up May 1st, so I'm kind of scrambling to get some more kids in here. But I'll take good care of them. I do promote languages real heavily. One little short story, then I'll let you get to lunch. I had a speaker named Sunny K. Park. Anybody in the Korean community will know Sunny K. Park. I had a student who had some Korean language ability who introduced Sunny K. Park in Korean. You should have seen his smile. He was so thrilled that we have kids that value Korean that would be willing to do that. So please talk to me if you are interested or have any connections with high school students in any way, and I'll be glad to fill you in. Thank you.
What is your website?
Yeah.
Right on the board. We put it on we 12.
Oh, okay. Thank you. And I've got plenty of handouts. Okay.
And big thanks to Marcelo, and let's have lunch.